You don't know the power of
The spice,
What is it doing to me?
the spice expands consciousness.
What's up, everybody? This is the Hedge Mage, and welcome back to another video and another episode of Spice of the Week, where we take a look at some of the most interesting and creative decks currently being played in the format. Like I always do, I have curated 3 lists for you today that really exemplify just how much different of an experience it can be playing in paper as opposed to playing on platforms like MTGO. But before we get any further, if you enjoy the content that I create, if you could leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate the support. And with that said, let's get into it. All right, and the first deck that we're looking at today is Rogue Deck by Saito Bunmei. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but let's take a look at what it is. So basically, we got a Tolarian Terror deck, a Simic Tolarian Terror deck. Well, so let's take a look at what they brought. So we got a new card here, Rubble Belt Maverick. So haven't I've seen some dredge lists playing this, some not. But yeah, this is a relatively new card. It does surveil when it ETBs, which means you can put cards in your graveyard. So very good at fueling uh the graveyard for Tolarian Terror, which they're also running 4 of in this list as well. They're also running 4 Satyr Wayfinders. So this allows them to put cards in their graveyard and make sure that they're not missing their land drops, which is honestly kind of important in a deck like this. All right, and in their sorcery pile, they got 4 copies of Foresight. 2 pick your poison, and then 3 slime, not 3, 13 slime against humanity. So it's also a slime deck. So they can bring in tears and slimes. I've seen some decks going kind of either way where they're trying to either go all in on their slimes or they kind of split up the slimes with Tolarian Tears because, 1 mana 5/5s with Ward 2 are just very strong, and your slime against humanity kind of just fold to something like Echoing Truth, for example. Just bounce all of them. It's pretty much a sweeper for tokens. So I could see why they'd want a little more stability with 4 Tolarian Terrors. All right, in their instant pile, they got 4 copies of Otherworldly Gaze. This really makes sure that they are able to find whatever they need. Also has flashback, which is really nice. Also fills up the graveyard with stuff that they don't need, either getting more slimes or more instants and sorceries for Tolarian Terror. Then they got 1 copy of Tamio's Safekeeping, which this card is really, really good. I'm honestly surprised we don't see it more in decks in green, as this can kind of safeguard you against a multitude of different styles. Can safeguard you against anything with targeted removal like Golgari Gardens, or if you are in or if you play in a meta where Panza or land destruction is not, I won't say dominant or prevalent because it never seems to be, but is, more common. Tamio Safekeeping can give your lands hexproof and indestructible. Also gains you 2 life, and anything that can gain you life in the format is definitely worth playing. And then they got 3 copies of Weather the Storm. In their land base, it's actually a 22 land build, which is, I think, a little high. But let's see what they got. They got 8 forests, 2 hidden cataracts, which is another new card. This one came from the recent Ixalan set. 2 hidden nurseries, so they are running 4 caves, 6 islands, and 4 Thornwood Falls. All right, in their sideboard, they got 4 Counterspell, 2 copies of Mana Leak, 3 Mulch, 1 Pick Your Poison, 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Tamio Safekeeping, and 1 more Weather the Storm. So it seems like post sideboard they want to bring in a lot more kind of tempo and just kind of switch over to more of a control deck, as they're probably anticipating people bringing in lots of graveyard hate and things to deal with their game plan. So then bringing in the mana leaks, the counter spells, and the spell pierces to try and fight that as much as possible. I'm surprised they have a mulch here and just don't have it main board. I feel like this is kind of a waste of a slot. That's just my opinion. You know, the Cider Wayfinder always is already kind of doing that. I mean, you could always run mulch instead of the Wayfinder too. Um, though the Wayfinder does give you a body, so you can have that as a blocker if you are worried about that. Um, but yeah, definitely a pretty interesting deck. So I've only really encountered playing against the slime deck maybe once. It is a deck that you have to watch out for because you can have a lot of really big slimes swinging at you pretty easily, and they have trample, so they get a lot of damage through, and it can be some pretty sweaty games. So definitely something to keep an eye out for. Looks like this deck is going for around $87, as the slimes themselves have kind of gone up in price quite a bit. So right now it looks like a card market price for it is $3.99. So just their sorcery pile right here is $55. A huge portion of the cost of this deck, but the rest of the deck is pretty inexpensive. This deck we're taking a look at is Profeta Gruul Control Deck by Bruno MTG. All right, so let's see what they brought in their creatures. They got 10 creatures, 4 Avenging Hunter, 2 Crimson Fleet Commodore, 1 Fangren Marauder, and 3 Oliphants. So basically they are an initiative deck, probably a very grindy mid-range type of game plan. In their instance, they got 22 with 3 Breath Weapons, 4 Demand Answers, 4 Lightning Bolt, 2 Moments Peace, which can help them maintain Monarch as well as the initiative, 1 copy of Pulse of Marasa, 4 Scred, 2 Thrill of Possibility, 2 copies of Weather the Storm. And they're also bringing in 1 Makeshift Munitions, which is a little odd. And then they got 2 copies of Candy Trail, not Candle Trail, 3 Ichor Wellspring, and 4 Lembas. So really, I don't really know if they're truly running enough artifacts for makeshift munitions. I guess I can sack their creatures, which isn't a super bad thing if they're just trying to get that couple more points of damage in to win the game. All right, in their lands, it's an 18 land build. They got 4 Highland Forest, 1 snow-covered forest, and 13 snow-covered mountains. In the sideboard, they brought 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Cast in the Fire, 1 Fangren Marauder, 1 more Moments Peace, Pulse of Marasa, 4 Pyroblast, 3 Relic of Progenitus, and 1 copy of Weather the Storm. Alright, so definitely a very much grindy mid-range kind of game. Lots of removal and sweepers in the Screds, the Lightning Bolts, and the Breath Weapons. And they have a way to gain quite a bit of life with Weather the Storm. Also, Pulse of Marasa gains you 6 life, so it's something you should never forget about. And then they kind of end the game with, their Crimson Fleet Condors giving them Monarch as well as Avenging Hunter giving them Initiative, which is just a way to steamroll your opponents. This deck definitely is not very budget friendly. It's $104 right here, though a fair chunk of that is in the lands, as snow-covered lands are a little pricey. Their sideboard also has some more expensive stuff as well with the Relics of Progenitus. But yeah, pretty interesting build here for a more of a grindy mid-range version of Gruul. So love to see this. Though I'm still not sure about this makeshift. I don't really think it has a place here, but it is an interesting one of in the deck, that is to be sure. All right, and the last deck that we're taking a look at today is Prism Hawk deck by Onoe Yohei. And let's take a look at what's going on here. So we got 20 creatures. They got 4 Glinthawks, 3 Guardian of the Guild Pack, 3 Inspiring Overseer, 4 Court Skyfishers, 2 Thorn of the Black Rose, and 4 Thraben Inspectors. So yeah, this is basically, I believe this is going to be a Tithing Blade deck, but they're running Guardian of the Guild Pack, which is pretty wild. Instead of running any big payoffs like Initiative or maybe doing what I've been doing with the Tithing Blade deck is going for the Metalcraft Vampire that drains for 4. They're running Guardian of the Guild Pack, which is pretty wild. But obviously, this card can do a lot of work for you. So that is pretty cool. All right, in their sorceries, they got 4 Chainer's Edicts. And then instance, 4 cast downs. In their artifacts, just 3 Olympus and 4 Tithing Blades. And then in their enchantment pile, they have 3 copies of Pestilence, which is pretty wild. I mean, obvious. So this is basically like Tithing Blade and the Orzhov Pestilence deck coming together a bit, it looks like. Since they got the Skyfishers and the Glinthawks to bounce their Tithing Blades, they can then also just drop a Pestilence. As long as they have Guardian the Guild Pack out, Pestilence just stays on the field and can just kill everything. Alright, plus they have, a bit of life gain from crafting their Tithing Blade as well as, their Inspiring Overseers, gaining them life and drawing them cards. Alright, so let's take a look at their mana base. It's 22 land build with 3 Ancient Den, 1 Ash Barrens, 1 Bojuka Bog, 2 Kabira Crossroads, 2 Obscure Storefronts, 3 Orzhov Basilica, 3 Plains, 3 Scoured Barrens, 1 Silver Quill Campus. This is a really great card. I really love the campus cards. I wish there was a Demir one, but unfortunately there is not. And 3 Swamps. Alright, in their sideboard they brought 2 Circle Protection Blue. They must see a lot of terror where they play, as that card is very good against them. Then 4 copies of Dust to Dust. 2 Evan Carr's Justice, another sweeper that they can just keep buying back if they have, enough mana mid to late game. 2 Leave No Trace, pretty great sweeper against decks like Bogles, can also just deal with multiple All That Glitters. 3 Nihil Spell Bombs, and 2 copies of Standard Bear. Oh yeah, pretty interesting build here. I'm wondering if this is maybe a better way to play Tithing Blade, as I have really not, I can't say I've been truly enjoying the deck very much. Like, but when it works, and that's really satisfying. But when you don't have a Tithing Blade and you don't have one of your Skyfishes or your Glinthawks, the deck doesn't really seem to do very much, and it's not very interactive. But this is a pretty interesting take on it, basically turn it into a Pestilence build. So that is pretty cool, because basically Pestilence is basically a sweeper that you can use over and over again, especially with things like Guardian of the Guild Pack. So really seems very good against fighting against Koldatha Red. There is a lot of enchantment hate out there. So but they have so much removal here in their Chainer's Edicts, Tithing Blades, and Cast Downs. The only thing that I don't necessarily like is there seems to be a lack of card draw. I mean, once you've played your Inspiring Overseers and your Thraben Inspectors, you're kind of out of card draw, so you're going to be in a top decking situation a lot. They are running Lembas, though, so there is some card draw there. But I think working in some Deadly Disputes or even Reckoner's Bargain would be pretty good for a build like this, but overall I do really like it. Seems like a good way to go, especially with the current meta, and probably a very fun control deck to play. So definitely not a very budget friendly brew. It's around $102, but still seems like there is probably a lot of that cost is gonna be in the dust to dust as well as their mana bases because ancient dens have gotten pretty expensive. But overall, it's a very cool deck, and I was very hyped to take a look at this with you guys. But that's gonna do it for today's video. Of course, I'm gonna leave links to all the decks in the description below, so feel free to check those out on your own if you like. I would also love to hear what you think about the decks I selected today. Are there ones that you're interested in trying, ways that you would like to improve them, or that how you would improve them? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and I will see you all next time.